Hello, today we will find out all the information about the APAL 21541 Stalker. Perhaps even someone has heard about this car, but, Saravno. Here you can learn a lot more useful things. Subscribe to my YouTube channel not to miss new car reviews. Happy viewing. APAL 2154 Stalker is a light off-road vehicle based on units and assemblies from LADA cars. Developed in the city of Togliatti by the production company APAL LLC in 2003. Has a frame sheathed with plastic panels. It was planned to produce a limited batch of cars, 150 units, setting up production in Togliatti at the facilities of PSA VIS-AUTO. Stalker was relaunched into production in the summer of 2019. It was assembled by VIS-AUTO, but the customer was APAL, the main activity of which is the production of plastic and composite materials. In October 2020, information appeared about the termination of assembly due to a change by AVTOVAZ of the policy of working with small external assembly projects. The shipment of units for them at wholesale prices was stopped. OTTS at Stalker allowed the production of 150 cars per year, but this limit was not reached. In a year and a half of production, 24 commercial vehicles were assembled, and 13 of them were not sold. APAL 21541 Stalker is an all-wheel drive SUV that combines brutal design, archaic interior, proven technical stuffing and high off-road potential. It is addressed, first of all, to lovers of outdoor activities and riding on rough terrain, for whom cross-country ability is especially important in the car, and not the level of comfort or safety. The Stalker SUV was developed by the Togliatti company APAL on the LADA 4x4 chassis and began its history back in 2003. It was in the fall of that year that the SUV, then with a cloth top, was first shown to the general public at the stands of the motor show in Togliatti. But then, as they say, the matter did not go beyond words. They started talking about the car again only in the spring of 2017. When Rose Standard issued a fresh OTTS for the release of a batch of 150 crooks, but its sales on the Russian market started only in July 2019. Outside, Stalker is distinguished by a really brutal look, somewhat resembling a reduced copy of the legendary Geländewagen, and in general it looks quite harmonious. An unpretentious front end with round optics, a simple radiator grille and a neat bumper, a square silhouette with a short hood, trapezoidal wheel arch extensions and a steep stern. An unremarkable rear with rectangular lighting units and a suspended spare wheel. The length of the APAL 21541 is only 3,550 mm, of which the distance between the wheel sets extends by 2,200 mm, the width reaches 1,646 mm, and the height does not exceed 1,751 mm. The ground clearance of the SUV rests at 200 mm, and the size of the front and rear track is 1,440 mm and 1,420 mm, respectively. When equipped, the car weighs 1,170 kilograms, but at the same time it is capable of towing trailers weighing up to 1,500 kilograms. Inside the APAL 21541 Stalker is made in an archaic way. A large 4-spoke steering wheel with a flat rim, a laconic instrument cluster with 4 analog scales and a pair of small monochrome displays, an obsolete center console in all directions, which is crowned with a pair of rectangular ventilation deflectors, 3 sliders, the usual stove and several large keys of secondary functions. It is quite logical that only budget finishing materials are used in the interior of the SUV, and the quality of workmanship leaves much to be desired. According to the passport, the Stalker decoration has a 4-seater layout, but only children can be more or less tolerable on the back bench. There is very little free space here, and the sofa itself has a 2-flat profile, and there are no headrests. Front riders rely on seats with unobtrusive lateral support and sufficient adjustment ranges. The trunk of the APAL 21541 is purely formal, since its volume hardly exceeds 200 liters, and to access the compartment it is necessary to raise the entire rear part of the roof. Fortunately, there are gas stops here. Under the hood of the compact SUV there is a 4-cylinder gasoline-aspirated VAZ 21214 with a working volume of 1.7 liters, 1,690 cubic centimeters, which meets the environmental requirements of Euro 5 and is sharpened for gasoline with an octane rating of at least 95, which has an inline layout, distributed fuel injection and an 8-valve timing structure. The engine generates a maximum of 83 horsepower at 5,000 revolutions per minute and 129 Nm of torque at 4,000 revolutions per minute. By default, Stalker is supplied with a 5-speed manual gearbox and a permanent all-wheel drive system. In normal conditions, the thrust is divided equally between the axles, with a 2-stage Rozdatka and a center differential lock. How long it takes for the car to accelerate to the first 100 is not reported, but the maximum it can develop 132 kilometers, In the combined driving mode, an SUV destroys an average of 10.8 liters of fuel for every 100 kilometers of run. APAL 21541 Stalker is based on the LADA 4x4 chassis, but at the same time it has a 3-door body of frame panel construction with a load-bearing cage welded from steel pipes of standard rectangular cross-section and outer panels molded from ABS plastic. At the front, the SUV is equipped with an independent suspension with a multi-link architecture and a transverse stabilizer, and at the rear, a dependent system with a rigid twisted beam. As standard, the car is equipped with front disc and rear drum brakes, as well as hydraulic power steering. On the Russian market, APAL 21541 Stalker can be purchased at a price of 1,233,000 rubles, although this cost refers to a specific instance. The list of its equipment includes power steering, fabric trim, a standard immobilizer and 16-inch alloy wheels. I managed to study the Stalker live in the Togliatti Motor Show, and I can say with confidence, this is just a car for me, with the exception of one nuance. Really a horse price tag. After all, for 2 million rubles you can take an ordinary Niva and prepare it for off-road conditions that it will be almost invulnerable. Honestly, APAL would have cost at least 700 to 800,000 rubles, it would have been a more tidbit, although at the current price I am sure that 150 copies will disperse quickly. After all, we have a lot of rich off-road enthusiasts in our country. As for the car itself, it looks really brutal, even with its modest size, but the build level would not be called high quality. Well, the fact that the body panels of an SUV are made not of metal, but of plastic is, of course, a huge plus, largely due to the fact that it will not bloom, as it happens with an ordinary Niva. But what about spare parts? I think that with this approach, external panels will be very expensive in case of damage. The salon is, in principle, exactly what is needed in a real SUV, that is, everything is archaic, nothing superfluous, there is no complicated electronics that could break down, and cheap plastics are not a pity to scratch and get dirty. But damn it, well, it definitely shouldn't be in a car for 2 million rubles. To be honest, I was surprised that the engine was supplied from the same Niva. Was it really impossible to adapt the same 1.8-liter unit for 122 horses? Well, where does that fit 83 horses in an SUV? I drove a Niva, and if you put more or less normal wheels on it instead of stock wheels, traction is generally sorely lacking. Moreover, the car has such a good 4-wheel drive. It is good at least that the power steering was left, otherwise they could have removed it for that kind of money. So it turns out, well, it seems like a good device, well, not for 2 million rubles. Well, a maximum of 700 to 800,000 rubles, no more. Although, if you look at the price tags of other domestic cars, then such figures do not cause surprise at all.